when it was time.
Welcome back to RFL. We bring it back to New York now, where tensions are still boiling following the death of 43-year-old Eric Garner. Garner died on Staten Island last month after being put in an apparent chokehold, allegedly selling loose cigarettes at the time. The city medical examiner ruled Garner's death a homicide. Today, Staten Island District Attorney Dan Donovan announced he's taking the case to a grand jury to consider charges. Now, Donovan said, based upon the investigation that my office has conducted to date, I've determined that it is appropriate to present evidence regarding the circumstances of his death to a Richmond County grand jury. However, Reverend Al Sharpton, who has been at the forefront of community protests and rallies in this case, says he is still calling for intervention on the federal level. Sharpton is organizing a protest on Staten Island this coming weekend. Members of the UFT will be joining the NAACP, Local 1199, and a variety of community and religious leaders and groups on Staten Island as part of a march for unity and justice. This from UFT President Mike Mulgrew. The UFT has a long history of activism on behalf of our students, their families, and all of the communities of our city. And as we mentioned, Mike Mulgrew is backing the rally, much to the chagrin of the head of the Patrolmen's Benevolent Association, Pat Lynch. He says that how would he like it if police officers lined up with the activists who oppose his efforts and shield bad teachers and undermine effective charter schools? So, two questions in all of this. One is the impact of Donovan taking the case to the grand jury. The other is the rally on Saturday necessarily anti-police if it's in support of the Garner family and if it's expressing community anger at the way that some of this is handled?
You think Al Sharpton is running a rally is not anti-police? You really think that?
I'm asking the question.
He's already labeled it as
question.
this is a march against police brutality. So he's already gone.
But that's police brutality as opposed to
policing. Has not met a police officer he has liked in the New York City in the NYPD for decades.
That's not true.
Let's make this clear. What's the last positive thing Al Sharpton has done for the NYPD? I haven't seen a thing ever.
I don't think, but that's not his role. His role isn't to do things positive for the NYPD. His role
Has
is
he ever apologized to Tawana Brawley?
His role is to call out police brutality and police misdeeds when he sees them. That's his role. And you know what? And you have to give the African American community credit because that's the role that they're okay with him being in, and they'll let him do that.
But when he goes out and does these protests and does these wrong things, he never apologizes and admits he's wrong. Tawana Brawley has yet to apologize for it.
But how does that? How do I really care that he apologizes for Tawana Brawley if he's right on this issue over
because
here?
every single time he does these protests, he never steps back and apologizes.
Why should he apologize for Tawana Brawley that happened
because
almost 30 years ago?
when he steps out, he's wrong.
But is he right on this?
We don't know.
What does Tawana Brawley have to do with the video showing police apparently using an illegal chokehold on Eric Garner?
Because
what does Tawana Brawley have to do with that?
The man who's leading this protest, who tried to take over the Verrazano Bridge, who's taking money from school teachers to pay for it, is at the helm of the
so if it was a different African American leader,
you know what?
I would have a different answer.
If it was about voting for Al Sharpton to be mayor, maybe you have a point. But this is about the issue of police brutality and folks being upset that an African-American man who was unarmed was killed by a police officer.
Why doesn't Al Sharpton step aside and let somebody else do it in that case?
Why does he have to step aside?
Every once in a while, Al Sharpton, I bet, just to give himself some credibility, would say something good about the police. That's the way he plays the game, right?
Yeah.
So you're probably wrong. I bet someplace he did say, but he did it for his own personal benefit, not because.
I've never seen it.
Okay, let's put Reverend Sharpton aside for a second. Dan Donovan, the district attorney in Staten Island, is a good man, but this is a similar case where the community does not have faith, and you have to understand this is a long history. So a district attorney taking the case to the grand jury means absolutely nothing.
Really?
Absolutely nothing.
Well, that's why he wants the federal government to be involved.
Right. He wants to
wait.
Can I just say one thing, and then I will stop talking here. The reason why it means absolutely nothing, there's a history in our country of pro-police prosecutors taking a case to a grand jury and rigging the deck and coming back with no indictment and saying, see, the grand jury decided, not I, but we will never find out under the cloud of secrecy that you stacked the deck and only presented half a case to the grand jury. That's the problem. That's why in Ferguson, that's why in Staten Island, it's unacceptable. That's why in Yusef Hawkins and Howard Beach, they were demand. Sharpton did the same thing for a special prosecutor. That's how we got Charles Hines. That's how Hines got the prosecution, the convictions, and became district attorney of Brooklyn.
We have to remember that, particularly in communities of color, being able to take it out of local government and going to the federal government is the way that blacks have won their rights in this country for decades. And so having said that, I think
any better. Dan, you're right. Dan Donovan is a very ethical individual. I'm willing to bet you, Dominic, that if he's taken to the grand jury, there will be an indictment.
Well, I tell you this, Mr. Chair, your word means a lot to me, and if you think that's the case, I really hope that you're right.
He wouldn't take it to grand jury if he's not going to get an indictment.
I agree with that.
We'll have you back on after we hear from the grand jury, and we'll continue this conversation then. We're going to take a break on RFL. When we come back, Andrew Cuomo gets the cold shoulder. Two of New York's most influential unions say they're not backing the governor. There have been other union issues for the governor as well. What could this mean for the governor's re-election campaign? We'll get into that and more next.